What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is Brian Deegan. Brian Deegan is a legend in the world of motocross. He is the most decorated freestyle motocross driver in X Games history. The talent in Brian's family runs deep. His daughter Halie is a professional stock car driver. One of his sons, known as Danger Boy, is the best of the best in the world at his age bracket in the dirt bike racing world. It's a big honor to have him on the podcast today. Go down there, smack the subscribe button, tap the like, and let's jump into it right now with Brian Deegan on First Class Fatherhood. Joining me now, First Class Father Brian Deegan. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, let's start it right here. How many kids do you have and how old are they?
So I have 3 kids. Halie is 19 now, Haiden 14, and Hudson's 10. So 1 girl and 2 boys.
Yeah, wow, very cool. And if you could, Brian, just take a minute here to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Okay, yeah. Long story short, I grew up in a small town in Nebraska. Grew up racing motocross, and that was kind of my key to make it out of Nebraska. And I went to California when I graduated high school, chased my dreams to race Supercross. We did that for a few years, ended up winning some races, and then went to X Games. Helped create freestyle motocross, which was a sport where you like backflip dirt bikes. And we did that for many years, was able to make a good career out of that, and a good living, built some companies through action sports, helped make that movement go forward. And then I went from that to truck racing, started racing off-road trucks, rally cross. Just got sick of getting hurt, broke a lot of bones, a lot of injuries, in freestyle motocross. It was a very dangerous sport. And then I had Halie. We had Halie, and that kind of changed really my thought process there. And that's when I went into car racing to do something a little safer. So I did that, car racing for many years, and that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, and you've had an incredible career, obviously, Brian. And so you hit on it a little bit there. About how old were you then when you first became a dad, and how did becoming a father kind of change your perspective on life?
Yeah, so I'm 46 now, and Haley's 19, so you guys can do the math. It's been almost a few decades, and I'll be honest, when we had Halie, my wife Marisa, that I've been with for a long time. Like I said, a few decades. We started dating when I was around 20, 21. She was around 18, and we met in California when I came out here, and she's been with me through all the ups and downs of my career. And then we had Halie, and I was a rebel dirt bike guy. Created a company called Metal Militia. It was a group of rough dirt bike guys. We were at the guys that, at X Games where, we're all black, had the spikes on the chest plate, and we're into heavy metal, and we were just this party group of guys, and, pushing this movement of just being crazy and building the sport. And it was just a fast-paced lifestyle, and, started making money. I grew up, I didn't have a lot of money. I started with nothing, and, but then started making money in action sports, so everything started moving quick, and man, we were just out of control. And then I had Halie. We had Halie, and that was I was probably, like I said, I was at that point in my late 20s, or probably 26, 27 or so, and it really was a life-changing experience. It took me a while, though. It took me a while to kind of accept being a dad. It took me a while to figure out, do I really want to settle down? And it was tough, but I'm very fortunate that, Halie came about, and I focused on that for sure. But it took, it definitely took a lot of fighting off demons and stuff for sure.
Yeah, well said. And what would you say, Brian, are the top values that you hope to instill in your kids as they grow up here?
Yeah, I'd say top values. They've changed over years, but I think a lot of people look at my kids because Halie is a top prospect right now in NASCAR. And, long story short, she's one of the only girls that has ever won races in NASCAR. She signed a multi-year deal with Ford Motors that's going to take her all the way to the Cup Series. She's doing the Truck Series full-time next year. So really, when people look at us from the outside, and my son Haiden is the best in the nation at his age of motocross. He's the top prospect for dirt bikes. He'll be turning pro in another year or two. All the factories are going after him to sign him. I guess that's the same equivalent of like being one of the top picks in football or baseball. That's him in motocross. And so I have these things going on, and from the outside, I think people look at it like, oh, their number one thing must be winning. It must be the championships and being the best. And I think that has been a big part of our family drive is being competitive. But I think the most important thing for me to instill my kids is being good people. I think sports can come and go, as you see with COVID and everything happening in the last year. You're like, sport it's cool, but it's not a necessity. And so I look at my kids. I'm like, the one thing we try to instill in them is just being good people. Being, like we have a Christian foundation. We go to church on the weekends when we're not racing, and I'm glad for that. I think that's what's kept us solid, kept us together. That's what's kept my marriage, together. That's what's kept my relationships together. I'll be honest, it's like I was a mess before, I got really focused and have, that foundation now. So I think that's the most important thing that I instill in my kids is being good people, treating others how you want to be treated, and working hard, setting your goals, achieving goals. I think that's important. But I think most importantly is how, that legacy you leave, what people think of you, and how people, can they trust you? Can they take your word? Moving from Nebraska, everything was, I grew up in Nebraska where a handshake deal, that was it. Like you shook someone's hand, that was a deal. California, that changed me. California, it's not like that. And so, I feel like I want to instill that in my kids, though. Like your word is, that's what you have to stand by, and I think that's important.
Yeah, good stuff, Brian. And what is it like for you as a dad to watch your kids? I mean, obviously, the dangers of the motocross. You've been doing it your whole life. You've had several injuries doing it. What is it like for you as a dad watching, especially your son doing the motocross and even your daughter now doing the, the pro racing with the NASCAR and all that? What is it like for you as a dad to watch that?
Yeah, I think it's one thing for me. I've broken many bones, over 15 surgeries, lost a kidney. Almost died a few times in sport. And for me, it's like, okay, that's just what I did. I wasn't too stressed about the fear of it, after multiple injuries, it kind of wears on you, a lot of plates and screws in my body. And once we had Halie, I thought, man, I need to be around, to support them. And so that made me taper off and get safer. But then you look at it now, they're in these sports. Halie rode dirt bikes when she was younger, but we kind of veered her out of that to get into cars. And I feel like NASCAR, yes, they go 200 miles per hour at Talladega or Daytona. And Haley's already done those races. And I've been there watching. It's nerve-wracking. But those cars are relatively safe in the motorsports world. In the motorsports world, the stock car is the biggest roll cage, safest car. IndyCar, Formula One, you're getting into cars that are really dangerous. If you crash. And so I feel okay with that, with the safety, but yeah, it is for sure nerve-wracking because it's still my little girl. Big crash at 200, fire, getting caught in a car like that. She's been on fire a few times in race trucks, luckily have gotten out of that, and she's pretty smart with what to do and how to react in that. Haiden on dirt bikes, yeah, it is scary. The best thing I can do with my kids is prepare them the best way to have the safest outcome. So we have Supercross tracks at my house. We have motocross. We have a freestyle park, foam pit, race truck track at my house. And so they train all the time here. And so when I watch my son ride a dirt bike, he is so smooth and so fluent. His technique is so good. When I rode, I didn't even think about technique. I was just all about like guts, like, okay, who's going to be the craziest today? And that ended up with a lot of injuries that way. Haiden has broke bones, he's broke his collarbone and had a few small injuries, but overall he's been relatively pretty safe. So it is scary. It's scary. It sucks thinking about it. I hate it.
Yeah, I would imagine. Now, what kind of advice do you have for that? The parents, obviously, your kids benefit from the fact that you've been doing this your whole life. But what about for the parents out there whose kids are interested in the motocross, but their parents have zero experience in it? What kind of advice do you have for those parents on how to guide their kids if this is something that their kids want to do?
Yeah, that's a good question because I've had that question, from many parents, and we work with a guy named Kevin Elko. He's the performance coach for for Alabama football, and he's a very smart guy, and he wants to do. And it's funny because I've been able to coach my kids up to be champions, and I didn't have a formula for that. My dad was a good parent on motivating and goal setting goals, but I feel like if you're a parent coming into a sport like that, my point with Kevin Elko, we're talking about doing a book on that, how to raise champion kids in sport. And but I feel like you got to seek out good coaches, good, people that could take your kid and teach them the style and the technique. And I think that's the safest way. You get good equipment and you get good coaches. That's how you can assure you're doing the right thing to not cut corners on safety. And the more you can teach a kid the basics, the safer they're going to be. And that's what I feel. I feel like if you don't know anything about the sport, the wrong thing for you to do is go get a fast dirt bike and take them to the track and figure it out. I think you can do that as long as you're not pushing super hard, but you have to seek out good coaches. That's my opinion on that. And if I could have done that at an earlier age, I think I would have been a lot safer for sure.
Yeah, good advice, Brian. And not only are you guys, your family name, you guys, the brand, the Deegan brand is a big name right now. You guys obviously got the YouTube channel going on. How is it? I know that's the social media world can get really, really bad. I mean, I've only been on it since I started doing the podcast. So much negativity and stuff like that. How do your kids how do you handle that with the kids when you get like the comments on Instagram or on YouTube? And how do you kind of handle that with them, especially at the young age?
Yeah, it's tough. That's something that we didn't have to deal with as kids, like when I grew up, there was no cell phones, like you didn't have to, like if you got picked on, it was one kid at school or whatever, right? It wasn't thousands on comments, right? Now Halie was the first one really had to deal with it, but I'll be honest, I really didn't give my kids access to social media like to where they freely had it in their hand all day till Halie was like 18, like believe it or not, she was 17 or 18 before we gave her full access to social media, because I'm like, we're doing sport, you're fine. Like the sport, you don't like focus on your sport. A lot of kids will sit there all day and just look at the phone and they get transitioned on the good or bad of comments. And it's so bad. I think it's so bad for the kids right now. And the best I can teach is what I teach Halie, because the way we put these levels is Twitter is the most ruthless platform. That's 100%. Where people, Twitter, for some reason, you feel like the negative is glorified, and in the media, negative is glorified. I wish it wasn't that way. That something negative gets the most views and likes. I wish it wasn't that. But most people like this. I'm glad you do a podcast that's pushing out positivity, and that's what I try to do in my social media. But a lot of times it isn't the thing that gets the most views or likes, and it's sad because I wish people would turn that corner, right? And but for my kids, I try to teach them that, hey, these people, you can never take anyone serious for their comments because you don't know who they are, right? You're taking someone's comment that you don't know their situation, you don't know where they're coming from, you don't even know who they are. So why are you taking that to heart? Okay, if a mentor, like someone, let's just say in NASCAR, if Jeff Gordon, the top NASCAR driver, had a comment to say about you, okay, then maybe we're going to listen to that. Okay, maybe, right? Maybe we're going to be like, okay, maybe he's got a point. But if, Joe Schmo from his basement says you suck, okay, really? Are you really even going to take that at all to heart? So I've had to coach my kids through that because, yeah, they're heavy. Their social media pages are big. Because you have to be to make money with sponsors endorsements now. You have to have a strong social. So, but we sift through the comments. If there's anything really bad, we just block them. At the end of the day, if someone's that bad, we just shut them out and shut them off the social media platform. And we're very vocal about that. Like if you're at all negative on our social, we just block you and you're done. So our YouTube page. But on our YouTube page, sometimes we have comments, but when you have a YouTube page that has kids on it, anything under 18, they have a rule on YouTube where they really don't even allow comments anymore to protect them from bullying. Half of me doesn't like that because it hurts business. It hurts when you're trying to promote and when you're trying to connect with your fans. That's what social media is about. You're supposed to be talking with your fans. And you're supposed to have a community. And so, but YouTube polices that pretty hard, which other half of me is cool with it. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. You know, if you guys want to protect the kids, good. But you have to do that everywhere though if you're gonna do that. But Instagram's pretty good. There's not a ton of negativity on it. There is a little bit. TikTok has been relatively really good. There's not a lot of negative on TikTok. Like, and I get it. I have my opinions about TikTok and this that, but overall, that's the one platform that does not censor either. Like, when I say censorship, I mean, like, if I post something political or post something my view, even on religion or some things that I have to say on Facebook or Instagram, I've had my page shadow banned, you know, and I'm like, really, like, kind of weird, you know, like how you can lose your voice right now. And I just thought like that has been a tough thing for us at some point when you want to just, you know, speak your opinion. That's all it is an opinion, right? Like, I'm like, this is my opinion on my page, and like, you don't have to take it to heart, right? Like, so anyway, that's just some things we deal with.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people on the show here that have had the same situation, especially, and it's unfortunate because the social media can be, it is so good for things like to promote for me to promote the show, for you to promote your brand. You really need it in today's world to get anywhere. But there's so much that, like, especially Twitter, like, unless you're dunking on somebody over there, you ain't getting a retweet like over there. It's sad how that platform is, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm curious here for you. Your oldest is your girl. My youngest, I have 4 kids myself. My youngest is my only girl. She's only 6 right now, but I'm already dreading those high school years with her and all that stuff to come. You've already been through this a little bit. So how did you kind of handle it as a dad when Halie got old enough to hit that dating scene?
You know, we've always been pretty strict with the dating issues, which is hard though, because I remember we were all teenagers once, and we remember, like, when you're a teenager, your thought process is different. You see things. There comes a point at an age where your parents you just don't know. They think, right? They're like, oh, you don't know what I'm going through, or this, that. But really, we've been there. We dealt with those things too, but we try to be open-minded, but we still really had boundaries, like real tight boundaries, you know. And I don't feel like as a parent you have to be your kid's best friend, right? You still have to have those boundaries of, like, hey, I'm not okay with you going out all night. I'm not okay with, you know, you talking to this certain group of people. Like, we had a really strict rules. We didn't even really allow, I hate to say it, but we didn't even really allow dating until she was 18, you know? And which I don't know if I hate to say it, right? It's just was our rules, right? We had goals. We were investing a lot of time and money into her making it in her career. And she has the ability. I always tell her, I'm like, you have the ability to transcend the sport of NASCAR as being this figure that could be a voice for the nation, for girls, and for, you know, there's such a big movement behind you. And I mean, you could spread so much positivity and have so much influence on so many kids. I'm like, so why even jeopardize that? You know, why even throw that away? And so we have those talks a lot. But overall, teenagers and dating, we didn't really let her date till she was 18, and now, you know, she's talking to guys and stuff like that, which we're still really, like, we have a tight family circle. We do. I just feel like, if you don't keep the rules tight, and this has a lot to do with my wife. My wife's the one who's really strict on everything, which is, I'm probably more the lenient one, like the more lenient dad, but unless things get bad, then I come in. But she's pretty good at setting the boundaries too that we stick by. And I feel like you have to do that, because if you don't, if you don't set those boundaries and you don't raise your kids, something else or someone else will, right? They will, like, and there's so many influences out there that are, you know, no one's gonna look after your kids like you are. Like, it just ain't. Like, you have to take on that position seriously, otherwise you're gonna deal with the consequences, I feel.
Yeah, very well said, Brian. I wanted to get a quick hitter on your faith. I know that, I mean, I'm a person that keeps God first in my life. My family, we pray at the dinner table every night together. We eat dinner as a family and I talk about on my show all the time the fatherless crisis we have going on in our country. To me, it's the number one social issue that we have going on. And when you combine that with the fact that God has been removed from so much of our society, those two things combined have really created a lot of havoc in our society. So how important is your faith to you, and how important is it in your family?
Yeah, I feel like faith is the foundation, right? It's the foundation of everything in our house that we start. I mean, could we be more hardcore about it? Yes. Could we? I get up, I give thanks, I pray every morning, I pray every night before I go to bed. It helps me start my day. We pray at dinner. We sit down as a family. I feel like those are things that were just normal, back in the day. Those are things that weren't like, wow, those are things that you just did. Like everyone ate together as a family, and now I think everyone's get so busy, everyone feels like, oh, I got something to do, we got to go, or everyone goes their own separate ways. I think that there's simple basics in raising a family the right way and keeping them solid, and I think that it's the foundation in a faith and a foundation in church community, the right community, doing things together. Even like those family vacations that, sometimes people dread, like I think those are important, because you look back at that stuff and you look at those memories and pictures and all that stuff, and those are good. Those are moments you don't want to be too busy to pass up. We've been pretty fortunate though, like we're always together because of racing. So our family, like my job is racing. My job is to be, with the kids and promoting their sponsors and endorsement deals we have a web store that we sell products, and so I get to be around them all the time. But I feel like the most important thing for a family is, like you said, I think it's faith, being together, vacationing together, spending time together, eating dinner together, at least one meal a day. You guys have to sit together. And I noticed one thing I've seen families do that I thought was pretty cool. You sit at dinner and you say, hey, what was a good thing? What was a good thing that happened today for you? Like, just start talking, having those conversations instead of just head down or everyone's on their phone at dinner. Like, that's not good. Like, the phones at some point have to go away. Like, and like when I drive my kids to school in the morning, sometimes this will be on the phones. I was like, put the phones down. And even if we're going to be silent, we're going to be silent. But, most of the time we talk about whatever. I think there's got to be those moments. Dinner is a time where the phones should be away. There shouldn't be any phones at dinner. And that's a time that everyone should be talking and talking about maybe what was good that week or bad that week. And then, or even like, I'm not very good at it, but my wife is, like playing board games. And even though it sounds cheesy, like just go back to the basics, right? That's kind of what I feel. And I feel like faith, it took me almost dying in a crash. I had a really bad crash doing this MTV show. I did a backflip and it was real windy, and I came up short, and the handlebar went through my stomach, and it blew up my kidney and my spleen, and I almost bled to death, and they had no ambulance on site. So by the time I got to the hospital, I was passing out from such a low heart rate and bleeding out, and that's when I started praying. I was like, please God, if you're real, I don't want to die. And this point, that was May of 2005. And I just thinking about my daughter. I was thinking about my funeral, thinking about all this stuff. Because the doctor leaned over me and was like, hey, is there anything you want to tell your family? Because he thought I was going to die.
Wow.
And so I went to emergency surgery, and that's when I started praying. And that's when I fully gave my life to Christ. I was like, please let me live. I'm like, man, I'll turn my ways. I'm going to focus. And so I woke up, tubes everywhere. And now my daughter was young, probably 3 or 4 years old at the time. And then my wife was really sick in the hospital, and I found out she was pregnant with my son, which is all these events were unfolding. And I was like, man, it was too much coincidence to not go the direction of God. Right. I was like, I have to go this route. And so once I did that, I fully focused on being a Christian. And I think that walk really helped me, And I've been through a lot of ups and downs since then, but I always been able to reach back or reach for that and lean on God, lean on the faith. And I think a lot of people are lost without it right now. I think, and I hate that they're pushing it out, everything. I hate that they're making like Christians or even God-fearing people weirdos, like they're trying to make you weird for like being into God, and I hate that. I wish it wouldn't. And the bad thing is, I always tell people, I'm like, if you don't believe the Bible, I'm okay with that if you've read the Bible. If you've read the Bible and said, okay, that's crap, I'm not listening to it, it's okay. But if you've never read the Bible, don't tell me you're not into it. Don't tell me it's fake. Don't tell me, like, if like it took me reading the New Testament to go, man, this is like, it really grabbed me. Like God spoke to me. Like it was like I could at that point couldn't turn back from it. I was like, this is way too real. And anyway, it made me dig deeper into it. And I think that faith is, like I said, your question about faith, I just think without it, I wouldn't still be married. I'd be a mess. Like if I didn't have faith, for sure.
Yeah, well said. And that's one of the reasons why I love seeing you out there and your family, what you guys represent, and what you do. I mean, that's what we need so much more of in this country is strong families that stay together, that do things together, that are happy for one another. Like when one you could see, it comes across when your son has success, you all have success. When your daughter has success, you're all having success. And I think that's a big part of that is missing, along with God, so much too. So I love what you guys stand for. And so what kind of, I mean, you've had all this success already. We know what you guys are up to at the moment. What kind of goals or plans do you have for yourself here for the future?
Yeah, for the future right now, like I said, Halie signed a deal for next year to race NASCAR trucks. It's 23 races. We have a house on the East Coast out by Charlotte. And so we're going to be out there a lot next year. Hayden's getting to the age where he's going to sign with a pro team. And a lot of the pro teams train back in Florida. So the plan is next year to focus on motocross, focus on the NASCAR thing is super important right now for her to make it through. It's a make or break right now for her. So we're going to go back east to focus on that. And then for me, I still race off-road trucks. I still run our Shop DEEGAN 38 website in our store. And you know, we have a lot of Deegan products for trucks and cars and all that stuff. So I just promote that stuff. I enjoy it. I enjoy doing business. For me, business is like competition, and I like it. I like working. I like being busy. For me, it's hard for me to sit still. It's hard for me to take time off. That's my biggest downfall, to be honest. It's just hard for me to take time off. And I've been trying to do that more lately. And COVID really helped me with that this year. It really helped me take a break. I mean, I'll be honest. I've ran myself down so bad from flying coast to coast, trying to make it to all the kids' events and do business. And I mean, and there's like, as much as we look good from the outside, we're a normal family. Like we have our bad days, we have our fights, we have our arguments, we have our, you know, disastrous business deals or disastrous family things that happen. You know, it's just a normal family, and so we deal with those stresses. But I think it's cool because we deal with them together, right? Like it's no matter what. Like I know that we have our family, that I'm not alone, you know, that I think those things are important, you know, and I think overall we get through it together. We get through these ups and downs together. But I've ran myself into the ground sometimes so bad that my body just shuts down, you know. That's how forward moving we're always, like fast paced, and I'm sure a lot of people are dealing with that right now, like a lot of high stress and a lot of people dealing with work and not, you know, low on money and job stress, a lot of things going on this year. It's been a tough year, 100%. But you know, we've been fortunate. We've, you know, like I said, at the end of the day, I always think, even if we had no money, I always think like, man, we still have awesome kids and you know, and an awesome wife, and my life's been good. Like we've had a great life, you know. Like I think about all the cool things we've done. I've traveled the world, and I've done that. I could have been a kid who just stayed in Nebraska. Like I could have been that kid that just went to college, and got a job and got married and stayed in my town. But I had this burning passion to just be curious and go see the world. And I used dirt bikes to do that. And through that, I feel like I've had an awesome life, and now I'm focusing mainly on my kids now, you know. And my life, I've done everything I want to do personally, except, you know, watch my kids win every championship and share those moments with them, you know.
Yeah, awesome stuff, Brian. The last thing I'm going to hit you with here, I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about-to-be father who's out there listening?
Yeah, I'd say best advice I'd have for the new dads are, you know, there's no manual for kids. There's no book. There's no like set book on this is exactly how you do it. It's I just feel like the most important thing as a father is to be present, be there. Like you know, for me, when I was young and we had our first kid, it was hard for me to settle down. It was hard for me to spend time. It was hard for me to stop what I was doing to be a dad. I almost like to the point where I didn't want to do it. I was so like set in my ways. And then I just feel like my advice is be present, be a part of it. And like my dad always told me, you'll never get that time back. Like when that clock ticks and you miss those moments with your kids, you're not getting that time back. And there's going to come a time when your kids grow up and they're going to go. And hopefully they still keep you in their life even when they go and get married and start their families. Hopefully they still keep you involved, and to keep that relationship. Like I always thought that as I got to 18, I couldn't wait to leave the house. I was like, man, I just want to get out. I just want to go. And then eventually I came back to always talking to my dad. Like we still talk like almost every day. But then I'm like, I'm glad because at first I'm like, man, my dad calls me every day. But now I'm like, man, it's good because I want that with my kids. Like I want my kids to be like, I want to hang out with my dad. I want to be associated with him. And to get that relationship, you have to put the time in when they're young. If you don't put the time in when they're young, don't plan on that they're hanging out with you when they're older. It's just the way it is. I don't know. It's my opinion, but my advice for new dads is be present. Be present. There's no set manual on it, but like I said, I like the Christian faith. I like to study by the Bible. It within that is a good manual of telling you how to do things the right way. If you fairly stick to that, you're going to be fine. And like I said, just be a part of your kid's life. That's the most important thing. And another thing, we won't get in this whole other subject, but with marriage, there's going to be good days and bad days, right? Everyone's marriage has its rough moments, like 100%. Not everyone has this perfect marriage and everything's great every day. So there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be different seasons of highs and lows. All I can say is you gotta stick through it and set an example for the kids, and we still as husband and wife, we still work on that every day, and we could be better for sure at it. But the point is that kids see that, and I think that's something. It builds confidence and strength within your kid when your parents are strong together. Is my opinion on that. So.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. I got to say, Brian Deegan, you're a first-class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And also, I have a podcast called The Deegans. It's on Apple Podcasts. And the only reason I'm saying that is because my last episode was on Christianity with one of my best friends, Ronnie Feist, who's another X Games medalist guy that I grew up competing with. And he's now a pastor. And he was crazy wild guy, 180, changed his life. Great example, good guy. So we did a good podcast on that. And I just recommend listening to that one podcast. Is really good.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm going to drop a link in the description of this podcast episode so my listeners can tap it and get on over there.
Awesome. Thank you, man.